Alright, so I'm working on a 2007 Honda Civic. It's got the check engine light on, and he took it to AutoZone and they said it needed a temperature sensor or something like that. I didn't even look at the paperwork. I just plugged in my launch scan tool, and I've been looking it over for a few minutes. I think I know what it is, but I'm going to take it for a test drive just to verify it. What we have is a P0128 cooling system malfunction. This one here, I set this one off, the P0118. I did it on accident when I was messing around with it. But this is the code that it came in with, the P0128. Now, usually that's because that sets on these because the temperature is not getting up to where it's supposed to be, either at a set time or it just never reaches that temperature. I believe Honda, it's around 195 degrees is where they want these to run. And anyway, I did a little bit of testing before I started this video, just to see, kind of give me an idea which way I'm going to go with it. You know, a lot of guys will just throw in a sensor on this and try to fix it that way. I think it's going to end up being something else, and I'll show you why I think that. I'm going to go into live stream data here real quick, and I'll show you why I think it's possibly the thermostat. It's been running about been running off and on here about 15-20 minutes. And I'm in the live data here, and here's our engine coolant temperature, sensor 1 and sensor 2. Now in Honda, sensor 1 is the temperature sensor on the thermostat housing, and sensor 2 is the one down by the radiator, and that's the one that tells you if your thermostat's stuck or whatever. You can see it's about a 40-degree difference right now, and we're just going to verify that real quick and see if these sensors are telling us the truth or not. And if they are, we may be looking at a faulty thermostat. So let me go over to the car real quick, and we'll see if we can verify that. Alright, my first real clue on why this may not be a sensor problem is because the car's been running about 15 minutes or so, and we're still only at 143 degrees on the engine coolant temperature sensor number 1. And that sensor is right here. And all I'm going to do is take an infrared reading of it. And I don't know if you... Try to get a good reading here. Hold on a second. Got a bunch of stuff in the way here. Alright, so according to the scan tool, the sensor is reading 147, and you can see on the infrared here we're reading 149, so that's pretty close. That tells me that sensor is probably okay. You know, you're only talking 2 degrees difference there, and I think that that's pretty accurate, that reading there. So the other sensor is down below, right where the radiator goes in, the lower radiator hose. I'm going to try to get a reading off of that and see what we got. Get as close to that sensor as I can. I'm not going to jack the car up and take... Alright, so I got it on the lower radiator hose. You can see here the temperature is reading about 113 on the sensor. And I picked it up at 104 on the lower radiator hose. So that's pretty close. It's 10 degrees, but like I said, I'm not right on that sensor where it's at. So I think we won't get a super accurate reading, but we're in the ballpark of what the scan tool is telling us. So what I'm going to do now is take it out for a drive and see if it ever gets to 190 or whatever it should be. You know, most of these cars run between 195 and 2.5, 210. And we're going to take it out and just see if it ever gets close to that. If it never gets to operating temperature, or it takes a long time, then we know that that thermostat's probably stuck open, and that's why it's taking so long to warm up. So like I said, this car has been running probably about 20 minutes now, and we're still at 150, and this thing should be at operating temperature by now easily. So I'm just going to hop in it, take it for about a 10-minute test drive, make sure it's heated up, and if it never really gets to temperature or it takes longer, then we know that we should just replace the thermostat. I've already checked the coolant level and it's good. Always do that when you get something like this. Just take a general look over of your coolant system, make sure it's full, make sure there's no leaks or anything. Which in that case would probably warm it up faster, but you still want to just go through your basic checks with it and make sure that everything's good. So I'm going to go ahead and take it for a short drive, see if it ever heats up. Alright, so I just got back, took it out for about 10-15 minutes. So the car's been running probably close to 40 minutes, and we're still only at 177 according to the temperature sensor. And I'm measuring right at the upper radiator hose, 176, and 177 on the scan tool. So we're pretty close. So basically, what that tells me is we don't have a sensor problem or computer problem, nothing like that. We're not reaching operating temperature. It's cooler here in St. Louis right now. It's probably 55 degrees or so. So if in the winter or in the summer, I'm sure it would reach it regardless. But with it being cool outside, it's just not gonna. It may not reach it. It may take an hour to drive it. So we're at probably 40 minutes, and we're still only at 170 something. So anyway, we're gonna go ahead and change the thermostat. I think it's a safe call at this point. The fans haven't even kicked on either, so that's another sign. So anyway, we're going to change the thermostat on this. We'll go through that, and then of course we'll see. I'll even put a timer on it, and we'll see how fast it warms up after we put the thermostat in and get the system burped out and everything. So I'm going to go order the part, and then we'll start taking this apart and turn this into a thermostat change on a. Alright, so you have two 10mm bolts hooked to your wiring bracket here. Those come out. I know a lot of people say, why don't you show the actual taking it apart? Because all you're going to see is my arms and the tools. You're not going to see what I'm actually doing. So there's two short 10mm bolts that come out, and then you have the two longer bolts for the actual housing outlet right here. I didn't. It's still hooked to my lower radiator hose. I didn't take that off. There's no need to do that. And then you have the thermostat that comes out. And what happened on this thermostat? It looks like it broke away from the base here. It's like it's partially broke away and partially not. So I think the thermostat is just always open because it's actually broke away from the plastic or the steel housing on the top. I looked at the new one. It's not like that. So what you have here is your rubber gasket, and then the actual thermostat. So I got a new one. We'll go ahead and put that one in. You're going to make sure, it should be clean because all this is a rubber gasket, but just make sure your both the mating surfaces are clean, free of debris before you put the new one in, and then we'll pop the new one in and start putting it. Alright, so on this gasket you got two little nipples here, and that goes towards the inside of the thermostat, so the engine side basically. If you look closely on this housing, it has two slots in it, and that's where those nipples go. They just line up with that, and then you push the thermostat in. So all you're doing is just, like I said, putting that gasket inward and then lining that up. And this thermostat has that brass piece in there. It's kind of a bypass. That should be facing straight up, almost in line with this notch up here. So that's all there is to that. And then just go ahead and put your housing back over it. Like I said, make sure it's clean. Now, of course, one of my bolts did drop into my drain pan, which is customary for any time you get out a coolant drain pan. Something's going to fall in there, either a bolt or a socket or some kind of tool. So I'm just going to start this one bolt here, and then I'm going to fish that other bolt out of the drain pan and get that bolt. Alright, so they're both in the housing there. We'll go ahead and torque those down. Those that want to, I can give you a torque spec on it. If you're real concerned about that sort of thing. Otherwise, just do it till it's snug. You don't want to go super tight because you could snap the bolt off. It's aluminum, so you just want it snug. But I will get the torque spec for you in case you're doing everything exactly by the book, which is fine too. And then all you have is those two 10mm bolts to the bracket, and then you should be ready to start filling it back up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll get your torque spec. Alright, so I went ahead and filled it up. I mentioned earlier that you know, it might need to be to 195 or so for it not to set this code, but really it's about time. The computer looks at how long it's been running, and if it reaches operating temperature or whatever, and if it's too slow or it never heats up, then it usually assesses code. I was going to look up the exact criteria for you on the on this code, but my computer's doing a Windows update and it's taking forever. And anyway, I'm not gonna. It's take too long to look it up, and I want to get this car out of here and get on to my next one. But I've had it running now about 8 or 9 minutes in here in the shop after I filled it up and took it for a drive. I let it cool down completely, and now it's been running probably about 8 minutes or so. And you can see here your temperature is 172, 174, somewhere in there. And if you remember last time, it was at 140 after running about 20 or 30 minutes. So it's a 30 degree difference just in idling without driving it, you know, from sitting here. So, and it's probably about a 30-minute difference in the runtime. So obviously it's fixed. One thing I'll point out on this is AutoZone did say that I told him, I believe, that it's most likely a sensor. You know, that's why you don't want to just change parts. I mean, I understand that not everybody has a fancy scan tool, but even some of the basic scan tools will show you the engine temperature under the data stream. So if you have just a basic scan tool, you can do this and test and make sure that your temperature sensor is working right. And if you have a temperature gun or infrared gun, that's even better, because then you can kind of compare the two and see. But you don't necessarily have to have that. If your sensor is not working right, normally on your scan tool, it'll show a negative number. Like say your sensor is just dead. A lot of times it'll show like a -40 or some crazy negative number like that. And then you'll know that your sensor either has a wiring issue or it's bad. You can also check the resistance on it, see if it's got if it's open. But that's the things you want to check before you just automatically change the thermostat or a sensor. Is just start it up, see how long it takes for it to warm up. Does it ever warm up? If it never warms up, is it actually, maybe it's warmed up but the sensor's telling you something wrong? And that's where that gun will come in handy. You can check and see what your scan tool says. If the sensor says it's 140 and your infrared gun's telling you it's 180, then maybe your sensor's starting to go bad. If they're pretty close, or if your sensor has a reasonable reading and the car is just not heating up, then I would look more towards your thermostat. I mean, 90% of the time it's going to be your thermostat on these. I do a lot of these P0128s, and I don't remember, really almost every time I've ever done one, it's always been a thermostat, especially on the Chryslers and stuff. And the GMs, they have the electronic thermostat, and a lot of times it's just a thermostat. So anyway, not to make it too long, but that's a quick check I would do. definitely don't buy a sensor at AutoZone or somewhere just because they say you need a sensor on that code, because you want to check with a scan tool, look at the live data, see what it reads, and see if it makes sense for what the temperature is on the engine and all that before I would buy a sensor. Like I said, normally it'll have a negative reading if the sensor's bad. If it seems like it's somewhat accurate, if you have an infrared gun, that would be even better, because then you can kind of double check it. But don't listen to them when they say, oh, it needs a sensor, because actually 9 times out of 10 it's a thermostat. So anyway, that's it for this car. We're going to go ahead and boot it, move on to the next one. I have a car coming in that when she puts gas in it, it dies, so I got to work on that. I'm pretty sure I know what that is, but we'll make a video on that. So anyway, thanks for watching on this 07 Honda Civic. Hopefully you learned something, and not always listen to your AutoZone guy when he scans your codes. And anyway, go ahead and end this out. We'll see you on the next one. Hope you have a good day, and as always, God bless.